All right, Dungeon Master, buckle up. We're about to crack open 2D6 Dungeon Core Rules Current Version .pdf. And,
Let me tell you, this isn't just some rule book. It's like a portal to this whole other world called Coradine.
it really is.
See, classic dungeon crawl, exploring, fighting monsters, hoarding treasure,
Right.
but with a twist.
Yeah.
This game, 2D6 Dungeon, is all about you becoming a legend. And get this, there are even subterranean gods involved.
Okay.
So grab your 20-sided, wait, wrong game, grab your 6-sided dice because Expert Speaker is here to guide us through this world.
What's really interesting about 2D6 Dungeon is how it takes this concept
Okay.
and it makes it feel really fresh.
Okay.
It's all about strategic choices,
Yeah.
but also about using your imagination to really inhabit this world.
Okay, I'm intrigued. But I gotta
Okay.
ask, what's with all the tables in this rulebook? Is this some kind of furniture catalog?
Not quite. Think of these tables as the game's engine.
Okay.
You roll dice, mostly 2 6-sided, hence the name,
Yeah.
and consult these tables to see what happens. They determine everything from the dungeon layout to the loot you find, creating all those unpredictable moments you love.
So it's like controlled chaos. I roll the dice, but the tables tell the story.
Exactly. And one of the coolest things about this edition is the dungeon ancestry concept. This time we're talking about a dungeon with human ancestry.
Ooh.
Imagine, what kind of dungeon would a society obsessed with conquering the surface world build? What would they leave behind?
Oh, okay. That's a cool twist. So instead of just generic monsters, I'm dealing with the remnants of this power-hungry civilization. No pressure.
No pressure at all. But let's talk about you in this world.
Okay.
You start as a level 1 raw adventurer, eager to prove yourself.
Okay.
You'll pick your weapon of choice, longsword, great axe, or a hefty heavy mace, each with its own unique moves in combat.
So it's not just hack and slash. There's actual strategy to the fighting.
Oh, absolutely. Let's say
Okay.
you go with the longsword.
Okay.
You'd then pick 2 starting maneuvers, special attacks essentially, like parry or lunge. Each has its own dice combo you need to roll to pull it off in battle.
Ooh, I like it. It's making me think about those tense moments in a dungeon crawl, where every decision matters. But what about staying alive long enough to use those moves? What about armor?
Excellent point. You wouldn't want to go in there wearing just a tunic, would you?
Yeah.
You get to choose from a variety of armor, each piece affecting how much damage you can
Well,
take.
even something like a quilted coat offers protection.
Don't underestimate it.
Yeah.
Every little bit helps when you're facing down dungeon denizens. And trust me, you'll need it because this dungeon has 10 levels, each more challenging than the last.
10 levels. Wow. Okay, so I'm picturing this massive, sprawling dungeon. How do I even navigate this thing?
That's part of the fun. You actually create the dungeon map as you explore.
What?
You roll dice and use those tables to determine the layout of each room, corridor, even secret passages, all on this cool grid paper.
Hold on, secret passages. This just got real. So it's
Yeah.
like I'm creating the adventure as I go.
Precisely. But you got to be smart about it. You have limited rations, which are essential for staying alive as you go between dungeon levels.
So I can't just set up a picnic basket and feast like a king down there.
Sadly, no. Resource management is key,
Hmm.
but there are ways to replenish your health in the dungeon,
Okay.
like catching your breath on the stairs between levels,
Okay.
especially if you have a ration or 2 handy.
Makes sense. Gotta keep up that adventurer stamina. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't also thinking about loot. What kind of treasures are we talking about here?
Oh, you'll find everything from glittering gems to powerful artifacts.
Yeah.
And the best part, you can sell them in town, which you can visit whenever you need to restock or cash in.
It's like a whole mini economy. You risk your neck in the dungeon and bring back the spoils, and then it's shopping spree time.
Exactly.
Mm,
But it's not all about the gold, you know?
right.
Remember those subterranean gods we mentioned earlier?
Oh, yeah, those guys. They sound intriguing.
As you explore, you'll come across shrines and monuments dedicated to them.
Okay.
And let's just say getting on their good side can be really beneficial.
Okay, now you've got my attention. So how do I earn their favor? Do I need to leave them a glowing review on Yelp?
Not quite. Although they probably appreciate a good word of mouth. It's all about offerings. Each god favors specific items.
No.
Maybe they have a taste for finely crafted weapons, rare herbs, or maybe even a splash of blood magic.
Blood magic. Okay, now things are getting interesting. All right, expert speaker, spill the beans.
What do these offerings get me, and how do I even use this blood magic stuff?
Okay, imagine this. You're deep in the dungeon. You've offered up, let's say, a really nice dagger at a shrine to Grakata, the god of the forge.
Okay.
That earns you favor points with Grakata.
Yeah.
Now, later on, You're facing a tough enemy.
Oh.
Things aren't looking so good. That's when you call on Grikata for help.
So it's like a divine insurance policy. But how does blood magic play into all this? Do I need to make a sacrifice at the altar of podcasting for that?
Thankfully, no blood sacrifices for podcast favors,
Fun.
though blood magic itself is a thing in 2d6 Dungeon. But as for those gods, think of calling on them like playing a high-stakes hand. You're essentially betting those favor points you earned. You make a favor roll with a single 6-sided die, and if you roll equal to or less than your favor points with that god, bam, divine intervention is on your side.
And what does that look like? Do the heavens part and smite my enemies?
Well, not quite a full-on smiting. Think of it more like well-timed assistance.
Okay.
Maybe you get fully healed right when you need it most, or maybe that enemy suddenly finds themselves tripping over their own shoelaces.
Metaphorically, of course.
So it's strategic. Adding this whole other layer to how I approach encounters. I love that. But even with godly help, I'm guessing I can't win every fight. What happens when I need to make a tactical retreat?
Smart adventurers know when to live to fight another day. Luckily, 2d6 Dungeon gives you options. Ever heard of a dungeon with a ventilation shaft?
Are we talking about making a daring escape through the air ducts? Sign me up.
It's not quite as action-packed as a Hollywood escape scene, but you can try to find this shaft.
You have to be near the edge of the current dungeon level, and then roll a 6 on a 6-sided die for each square along that outer wall.
Okay.
If you're luckin', you find the vent and get to make a hasty exit back to the surface.
Sounds tense.
Yeah.
It's like the game gives you this sense of, okay, things are getting dicey,
Literally.
and it rewards clever players who use their resources strategically.
Exactly. But let's be honest, half the fun of a dungeon crawl is loot, right?
Yeah.
And where do you go to flaunt your spoils of war? Back to town, of course.
Oh, right. Town. That's not just a respawn point, is it? What all can you do there? I'm imagining bustling markets, maybe a blacksmith or two.
You've got it. Town is your one-stop shop for all things commerce recovery, even a bit of gambling if you're feeling lucky.
Okay.
Think of it as a chance to upgrade your character and prepare for the next dungeon dive.
Okay, so not just spending my hard-earned gold on new gear. What else is there?
Well, for starters, there's the Town Hall Fancy, a friendly arm wrestle.
Now, this is my kind of place.
Yeah.
What do I win? Bragging rights. A commemorative mug.
Bragging rights are definitely on the table. But if you win, you can also get a permanent boost to your discipline stat. It's not just about brute strength down there. You know your wits about you too.
Love it. Okay, so I have arm wrestled my way to greater discipline. What about that shopping spree I was promised? What kind of goodies can I find in these markets?
The markets are full of useful stuff. We're talking better armor potions to heal your wounds, scrolls that hold powerful magic. Heck, you can even find mundane things like rope, which can be surprisingly useful in a pinch.
Never underestimate a good length of rope. And while I'm there, I'd be remiss not to stock up on ingredients for those potion bombs, right? Can't have too much of a good explosion.
You and me both. The herbalist is your go-to for those. Don't forget about the engraver while you're at it. They can imbue your weapons with runes that you find in the dungeon, making them even more powerful.
Oh, runes. It's like giving my weapons a magical upgrade. But with all this talk about town and gear and divine favors, it makes me wonder, what's the end game here? What am I working towards in 2d6 Dungeon?
Ugh, the age-old question. In 2d6 Dungeon, the ultimate goal is to conquer all 10 levels of the dungeon, overcome every challenge, and emerge as a legend.
A legend. Now that has a nice ring to it. What does that even mean in the game? Is there like a ceremony, a parade?
We don't want to spoil all the surprises. Let's just say reaching legendary status in 2d6 Dungeon unlocks a whole new level of challenges and rewards. It's not just about surviving. It's about making your mark on this world.
Okay, you've definitely piqued my curiosity. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's go back to those dungeon depths. What kind of challenges are we talking about on each of those 10 levels? Give me the lowdown.
Let's just say each level of this dungeon, it's like a masterclass in things that want you dead.
Yeah.
You're talking tougher enemies, more intricate traps.
It's not for the casual dungeon stroller then.
It's more like a dungeon sprint at times, believe
Yeah.
me. But don't worry, it's not all uphill monster bashing. As you overcome these challenges, you get tougher too. Gain experience, level up, unlock new abilities. It's that classic feeling of your character growing alongside the danger. But 2d6 Dungeon really makes it sing.
Okay, so it's a growth mindset dungeon crawl. I'm into it. But besides leveling up, what else helps me survive those later levels? because those enemies sound intense.
Remember that whole human ancestry thing we talked about? Turns out these dungeon builders weren't exactly minimalist when it came to, well, anything.
So not only am I battling their descendants, but I also get to loot their abandoned stuff? Score?
You're catching on? Think hidden storerooms, forgotten armories, heck, maybe even a treasury or two if you're lucky.
A treasury? Okay, now you're speaking my language. But I'm guessing it's not just free loot lying around, is it?
Let's just say the best treasures are rarely unguarded. Be prepared for a fight.
Challenge accepted. But even the toughest adventurer needs a break now and then. You mentioned town. What's a typical visit like between dungeon dives?
Think of it like this town isn't just where you go to heal and restock. It's where you become more than just your stats.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
We talked about markets and enchanters, but 2d6 Dungeon goes deeper than that. It gives you those little role-playing moments that make the world feel real. Remember the town hall? Aside from that arm wrestling ring, you can rub shoulders with the locals, hear rumors about the dungeon. It adds flavor.
So it's like I'm building a story with each visit, not just my character sheet.
Exactly, and that's what makes this game special. It gives you the tools to tell your dungeon delving story, from those close calls in combat to the choices you make when you're back in town.
It makes you wonder what kind of legend you'd become in this world, right?
Mm.
Would you be known for your tactical genius, your incredible luck, or maybe your ability to talk your way out of any situation?
That's the beauty of it. It's all up to you. 2d6 Dungeon gives you the framework, but the story, the legend, that's yours to craft.
What a journey. You know, starting this deep dive, I thought it was just going to be about dice rolls and dungeon maps, but it's so much more than that. It's about imagination, it's about pushing your limits,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's about becoming a legend.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It just goes to show, sometimes the most intriguing worlds are hidden within the pages of a rule book, just waiting for someone to breathe life into them.
And on that note, I think it's time for us to step back from this deep dive and let you, our listener, explore the depth of 2d6 Dungeon for yourself. What kind of hero will you become? What legends will you forge in the depths of Cordine? Let us know. And until next time, happy delving.